Who's the greatest UFC fighter? Are you allowed to say, in your opinion? It's tough for you to say because you do this, but who do you think is the greatest of the fighters?
There's a lot of arguments for who's the greatest of all time. John Jones, most people would say, is the greatest of all time. Never lost. There's certainly a really good argument for that. There's another argument for Georges St. Pierre. I always leave in B.J. Penn in his prime, Anderson Silva in his prime. Mighty Mouse. People forget about Mighty Mouse because, unfortunately, he's a smaller guy. He's 125 pounds, flyweight champion. He's one of the greatest expressions of mixed martial arts I've ever seen. I think to this day.
And Khabib? What about
Khabib's
Khabib?
fantastic. But if you looked at accomplishments in terms of championship fights, Khabib retired 29-0, but he didn't have as many world
probably never
championship
lost a
fights.
round. They say
he might have lost to Gleison Tebow. He might have lost to him.
A round?
He might have lost a round. And that was a controversial fight where people think that Gleison Tebow could have even got the decision in that fight. I'd have to go back and watch it again to make a decision. But
they're great athletes.
The best athletes in the world. And the most dangerous sport in terms of I always call it high-level problem solving with dire physical consequences.
Yeah, it's just brutal.
That's what fighting is.
I never forget. So there was a fighter named James Toney.
Oh, yeah, I love James Toney.
He fought as a very light fighter, and he ended up as a heavyweight. I mean, this guy went through everything. He was almost like a lightweight.
He went from middleweight all the way up to heavyweight. Yeah, and beat Evander Holyfield as a heavyweight.
And he was a real fighter.
Oh, yeah.
So James Toney, and I think it was George
St. Pierre?
St. Pierre. I think it was him. Who did he fight? James Toney.
No, James Toney didn't fight George St. Pierre.
He fought a UFC fighter.
Yeah, Randy Couture fought James Toney.
Was it
But
Randy
that was like
Couture,
an easy
maybe?
fight. That was a very easy fight. Randy Couture just took him down and
strangled him. It was the
him.
most, and he's half the size. And he just, once he got to the ankles, in fact, the announcer said, it's over.
Yeah,
and he put him to
picked him,
sleep.
took him down, mounted him, strangled him. It was
and
pretty
James,
quick.
he was but he was talking big because he was much bigger. He was a pretty big guy.
James just wanted to make some money. In that
You think
fight.
so?
Yeah.
But I never forgot it.
I don't think he knew what
it
he
was
was
over
doing.
very quickly, and he was lying, sleeping on the mat, and he was talking. He was doing the Muhammad Ali stuff, but it didn't work out. But I remember
he sold the fight.
Yeah, that was Couture probably.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was Couture. George never fought a boxer in an MMA fight. If he did, he would kill them.
Was he one of the greatest?
Yes, unquestionably. That's the argument. There's like a handful of guys you can make the argument is the greatest of all time. People forget about Anderson Silva. In his prime, he was unstoppable. But that's
Anderson
the thing is,
Silva.
and then there's Fedor Emelianenko who fought in Pride. In his prime, he was unstoppable. There's this,
and you have a couple now that are pretty good.
Oh, we've got so many now. Alex Pereira.
Correct.
There's an argument that he's the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world right now.
He's looking very good. Yeah,
it's unbelievable. But it's like fighters can only compete at that level for so many years, and so in my opinion, you have to judge them at their very peak. You can't judge them when they're hanging on and still fighting. You can't judge them when they're coming up. You got to judge them in that championship peak. And that championship peak, there's a handful of guys that you would consider at the very top.
If they stopped a little bit sooner, some of them would have had, there are a couple of that you just mentioned without mentioning names. If they stopped, they had they were unbelievable. And then at a certain age, they start getting knocked out, right?
Yes, it's unfortunate, but the thing is that same belief in themselves that lets them become a champion makes them think that they can do it long past the time that they actually can.
Well, Anderson Silva was essentially unbeatable. Mm-hmm. And then he lost a close one. Then all of a sudden he
got knocked out. He got knocked out by Chris Weidman.
Right.
He was kind of clowning in that fight famously, and Chris Weidman had a vicious left hook, knocked him out. And then they fought a second time, and he broke his leg on Chris Weidman.
Right, that's right.
And after that fight, he was kind of never the same because that leg break injury, which Conor McGregor had, there's quite a few fighters. Weidman actually wound up having the same injury, ironically. There's only been like
you're never the same because you can't
never
kick.
the same. Well, you can. Weidman is still kicking with that leg. You can, but psychologically, when you throw a kick and your leg snaps in half and you're in agony for a year, right? You have to get surgery. You have to get bolts and plates to keep your leg together, and then it takes forever for it to heal.
It always amazed me how the kicker, I mean, you have those cases, but the kicker will do tremendous damage to somebody's leg, but their leg doesn't seem to get damaged, isn't it?
It does get damaged. It hurts
more than you think.
Yeah, but your shin, your shin gets very numb after a while, And guys that are really good kickers, they're kicking the thigh and they're kicking the calf. They're kicking soft areas, and they're slamming this hard, numb shin.
Right.
You know, their shin gets all these like micro fractures all over the shin, and it calcifies.
Oh, wow.
Like these guys can kick baseball bats. You ever see them break baseball bats with their shins?
No, I've never
It's
seen it.
crazy. Some guys can do 2 baseball bats. Someone will hold the baseball bat and they just kick right through them.
But
'Cause their
see, I
shins
watch
almost
your
get numb.
enthusiasm now, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's why you're good at what. That's why nobody does this better. Without the enthusiasm, forget it.
Well, it has to be authentic. Like that. I mean, the only reason why I do MMA commentary is because I'm very interested in it for real. I don't have to manufacture it. I'm very interested. So I
and
think
you love
that's
going
what,
in there after the fight, and they're sweating all over you. They're slopping all over you. You're
They
beautiful.
bleed on me.
They're bleeding.
Sometimes their noses
Does that bother
bleed,
you a
splaying
little
them.
bit? Yeah,
No,
like
no.
2 weeks ago with the guy I never saw.
Khalil Roundtree. Yeah.
More stuff came out of his nose.
Yes, it was pretty nasty, but no, I'm very used to it. I just wanted
That's
him to
great.
be able to express himself.
You've done a great job.
Thank you.
You've done
Thank
a
you.
great job.